Captain Alden Rice sat in his command chair aboard the Courageous, the flagship of the human Deathworlder fleet, staring out into the cold, endless void of space. The vastness of the galaxy often made him feel small, but today was different. Today, something was happening. A call for help had reached his fleet, and it was no ordinary message. It was a distress signal, coming from the distant Tyrexian system, and it was unlike anything he had ever seen before. The Federation's communication network had received it just a few hours ago, a desperate cry from an unknown species. The Tyrexians, as they called themselves, were being attacked by a ruthless enemy, the Vorkuri. The Vorkuri were known throughout the galaxy for their brutal tactics and cold, merciless nature. Captain Riz knew that if the Tyrexians were unable to defend themselves, they would soon be wiped out. But what troubled him the most was that the message had been ignored by most of the galactic leaders. They saw the Tyrexians as insignificant, a race of no real power or importance. They would not waste resources on a species so weak. But Race was different. He had served in countless battles and faced enemies far stronger than the Tyrexians' attackers. He had witnessed the power of humanity, its resilience, and its refusal to ever give up, no matter the odds. And so, when the distress signal came through, he felt a stirring deep within him, a sense of responsibility. If no one else would help, he would. He stood up from his chair, walking over to the large communications console in the center of the command deck. "Lieutenant, get me the fleet's leaders," he ordered, his voice calm but firm. The young lieutenant at the station nodded quickly. "Aye, Captain. Connecting you now." Soon, the holographic images of several other officers appeared around him. Rice had served with many of them for years. They were seasoned veterans, each one having led men and women through the most dangerous situations imaginable. They were tough, they were smart, but most of all, they were loyal. "Captain, you called this meeting in response to the distress signal from Tyrexia?" asked Admiral Weaver, a gruff woman with a reputation for keeping her emotions in check. "Yes, Admiral," Reyes replied. "The Vorkuri are attacking, and the Tyrexians are losing. The message we received makes it clear. They need help. We need to act fast if we want to save them." The officers exchanged skeptical looks. "And why should we help them?" asked Commander Vargas, his arms crossed. "The Federation is not obligated to come to their aid. They're just another weak race. It's not worth the risk." Rice didn't flinch. "I don't care what the Federation thinks. I've seen what humanity can do when we put our minds to it. We've fought in the harshest environments. We've survived the deadliest predators. We're Deathworlders, and we don't turn our backs when someone is in need." The room fell silent. Race could see that his words had hit their mark. These officers had fought alongside him in some of the most dangerous battles in the galaxy. They knew what humans were capable of, but even they couldn't ignore the risks involved. The Vorkuri were ruthless, and this mission would not be easy. "Captain, I admire your passion," Admiral Weaver said slowly, "but this could be a trap. The Vorkuri are not to be underestimated. We've heard rumors about their strength. I understand the risks, Admiral," Race said, his voice steady. "But we are not like the others. The Vorkuri might have strength, but they don't have what we do. They don't have human will. They won't know what hit them." Rice could see that the officers were still hesitant, but he knew they would come around. He had earned their trust over the years. They knew him well enough to know that if he said this was the right thing to do, it was. "Prepare the fleet," Rice commanded. "We're heading to Tyrexia. We're going to show the Vorkuri that they've made a mistake." One by one, the officers nodded, the tension in the room shifting. They knew what was about to happen. The Deathworlder fleet would be entering a battle unlike any they have faced before, but they also knew that humanity had never backed down from a challenge. They were not afraid. As the officers left to carry out their orders, Reyes sat back down in his command chair. His heart raced, not from fear, but from excitement. This was what humans did best. They took on the impossible, faced down the unbeatable, and fought for the helpless. And now, they were about to show an entire galaxy what it meant to cross paths with humanity. Captain Alden Race stood on the bridge of the Courageous, his eyes scanning the vast darkness of space through the large viewports. The stars twinkled in the distance, distant and cold. But beyond that, in the deep reaches of the Terexian system, something else was waiting. Something that would soon feel the full weight of humanity's might. The Deathworlder fleet was assembling. Rice could hear the hum of the ship's systems, feel the power beneath his feet. The Courageous was a masterpiece of human engineering, a ship built for one purpose: to fight. It was one of the largest ships in the fleet, equipped with the best technology humanity could provide. But Race knew that it wasn't just the ship that made the Deathworlder fleet so powerful. It was the people who served in it. These were men and women who had grown up on the most dangerous planets, who had faced impossible odds their entire lives. They were veterans of countless battles. Their hearts beat to the rhythm of war. And now, they were going to war for the Terexians. The cry for help from a species on the brink of extinction had not fallen on deaf ears. Race turned to his crew, his expression calm but determined. "Status report," he said, his voice steady. Lieutenant Grayson, a young officer with dark hair and a sharp gaze, responded. "All fleet ships are ready for departure, Captain. The Valiant, the Resolute, and the Invincible are in position. All systems are online and running smoothly. We're ready to move out whenever you give the order." Riz nodded. He had trained his crew well, and now it was time to see the results of their hard work. "Good. Let's make sure we give the Vorkari a welcome they'll never forget." Across the fleet, thousands of soldiers were preparing for the mission. These were humans who had grown up in the toughest environments the galaxy had to offer. Some had come from harsh, dangerous planets where survival was a constant battle. Others had been raised in cities constantly under siege, learning how to fight at an early age. But no matter where they came from, they all shared one thing in common. They were all Deathworlders, and that meant they would do whatever it took to win. The fleet's departure was swift, each ship in perfect formation as they moved toward the Terexian system. Race could feel the power of the ships as they traveled through space, their engines roaring as they cut through the stars. The journey would take a few days, but the crew knew the stakes. There was no room for mistakes. The Terexians needed them, and the Vorkari had to be stopped. As they traveled, Race spent time with his officers, preparing for the battle ahead. They reviewed intelligence reports, analyzed the strength of the Vorkari fleet, and discussed tactics. It was clear that the Vorkari were not to be underestimated. Their technology was advanced, and they had a reputation for being ruthless. But Race wasn't worried. Humanity had faced tougher enemies before and emerged victorious. "What do we know about the Vorkari?" Race asked as he sat in the war room with his senior officers. Admiral Weaver, the grizzled veteran of many wars, spoke up. "The Vorkari are a brutal species, Captain. They don't show mercy, and they won't hesitate to wipe out anyone in their path. Their fleet is formidable, but they rely on fear to maintain control. They think we're weak, soft, even, but we're going to show them just how wrong they are." Commander Vargas, who had spent years fighting in the worst conditions imaginable, added, "They're ruthless, but they're also predictable. They think they're invincible. That's where we'll have the advantage. We're not afraid to get our hands dirty, to fight when the odds are stacked against us. The Vorkari won't know what hit them." Riz listened carefully to their words, nodding in agreement. "Exactly. We're Deathworlders, and we fight like it. We don't need to match the Vorkari in strength. We just need to outthink them, outblast them. And when we do, we'll show the galaxy what humanity can do." The officers nodded, a sense of determination filling the room. They all knew what was at stake. This mission wasn't just about saving the Terexians. It was about proving to the galaxy that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. As the fleet approached the Terexian system, Race stood at the front of the bridge, looking out into the unknown. The stars were now mere dots in the distance, and the Tyrexian planet was growing larger in the viewport. "We're almost there," Race said quietly to himself. He could feel the anticipation building within him, a feeling he hadn't experienced in years. The Deathworlder fleet was about to make history. He turned to Lieutenant Grayson. "Prepare the fleet for combat. We're about to meet the Valkyrie." Grayson gave a sharp nod. "Aye, Captain. Weapons and shields are standing by." Rice took one last look at the Tyrexian system, his eyes filled with resolve. The battle was about to begin, and humanity would not fail. The Deathworlder fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel just outside the Tyrexian system. Captain Alden Rice stood at the front of the Bridge of the Courageous, staring at the planet below. The bright blue and green world was a beautiful sight, but it was a sight under threat. Tyrexia was burning, its skies streaked with the smoke of distant battles. The Valkyrie fleet was already in orbit, their warships casting long shadows over the surface, bombarding the planet's cities and military strongholds. The Tyrexians were desperate, but they had help now. "Captain, we're entering Tyrexian space," Lieutenant Grayson said, his voice steady. "The Valkyrie ships are confirmed in orbit. They have a large fleet, Captain. It's going to be a tough fight." "I know," Race said. His voice was calm, but his mind was racing. The Valkyrie had more ships than the Deathworlder fleet, and their ships were well armored and heavily armed. But there was one thing the Valkyrie didn't know. Humanity never backed down. They had been pushed to the edge of extinction many times before, and had always found a way to survive. This time would be no different. "Set a course to engage the Valkyrie fleet," Riz ordered. "Let's show them what happens when you underestimate us." The crew sprang into action, executing their captain's orders with precision. Race could feel the hum of the ship's engines as it powered forward, cutting through space toward the enemy. As they approached the Valkyrie ships, Race could see their massive forms in the distance, looming like dark predators in the cold void. But Race wasn't afraid. He had seen worse, much worse. "Prepare the weapons and ready the shields," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Let them know we're here." The Courageous powered its weapon systems, the energy coursing through its massive cannons, ready to unleash hell. But Race wasn't in a hurry to engage just yet. He wanted to make sure the Valkyrie knew they were facing something they couldn't easily defeat. The Valkyrie ships turned toward the Deathworlder fleet, their dark shapes moving with deadly purpose. The enemy didn't hesitate. They opened fire first. Bright green energy beams flashed across the void, racing toward the fleet. The Courageous shuddered as the shields absorbed the impact, but it didn't slow down. The Valkyrie weren't holding back. They were throwing everything they had at the humans. "Shield holding," Grayson called out. "But they're pushing us hard. The Valkyrie are using concentrated fire." "Return fire," Riz ordered, his voice cold. He wasn't about to let them bully him. "Focus fire on their lead ship." The Courageous's weapons roared to life. Energy blasts shot from its guns, streaking toward the Valkyrie fleet. The enemy ship that had been targeted took a hit, its shields flickering. But it wasn't enough. The Valkyrie ships were tough, and they weren't going down without a fight. "Reinforce our shields," Race shouted. "All ships, concentrate your fire on the enemy fleet. We're not going to give them an inch." As the battle raged around them, the Deathworlder fleet held its ground. The humans were outnumbered, but they were relentless. Riz watched as the enemy ships exploded in fireballs of destruction, but the Valkyrie kept coming. They'd fought like animals, their instincts driving them forward, but they had underestimated humanity's will to fight. One by one, the enemy ships began to fall. The Valiant and the Resolute fired in perfect unison, launching missiles and energy blasts that ripped through the Valkyrie ships. The humans had superior tactics, and it showed. They were outmaneuvering the enemy at every turn. Rice had known the Valkyrie were a strong force, but he had also known that humanity could adapt to any challenge. "Enemy fleet is retreating," Grayson called out. "They've lost half their ships, Captain. The Valkyrie are pulling back." Rise felt a surge of pride. Keep up the pressure. We don't let them escape. Not this time. But as the battle raged on, something caught Rise's attention. A massive Vorkari ship, much larger than the others, broke off from the main fleet. It was heading straight for Terexia. "Admiral, that ship's headed for the planet," Lieutenant Grayson warned. "It's going to bomb Terexia's surface." Rise's face hardened. He couldn't let that happen. "Get us in position to intercept," Rise ordered. "All ships, follow my lead. We're going after that ship." The Courageous surged forward, its engines roaring as it cut through space. The Vorkari ship was fast, but it was also massive, and it couldn't avoid the humans' relentless pursuit. Rise felt his heart race as they closed in on the enemy ship. This was it, the moment where they would either succeed or fail. The Deathworlder fleet engaged the massive Vorkari ship in a final desperate struggle. The two sides collided in a burst of energy, weapons clashing, ships moving at lightning speeds. But the humans were determined, and with a final powerful blast, the Courageous tore through the Vorkari ship's defenses, sending it into a fiery explosion. The battle was over. As the last of the Vorkari ships retreated, Rise took a deep breath. The victory was theirs. The Terexians had been saved, and the galaxy would now know the true power of humanity. The battle had ended, but the feeling of victory still hung in the air like a charged atmosphere. The Deathworlder fleet had achieved the impossible, driving the Vorkari out of the Terexian system. Captain Alden Race stood on the bridge of the Courageous, watching as the remaining enemy ships retreated, their dark silhouettes vanishing into the distance. The sky above Terexia had begun to clear, the smoke from the earlier bombardments slowly fading away. Below, the planet's surface was scared from the destruction, but it was still standing. The Terexians had survived, thanks to the swift intervention of humanity. "Captain," Lieutenant Grayson spoke up, breaking the silence. "The Terexians are requesting a meeting. They want to speak with us. It seems they're eager to thank us for our help." Rise turned to face his communications officer. "Put them through." A moment later, a hologram of a Terexian leader flickered into view. The alien was tall and thin, with pale blue skin that shimmered slightly in the light. Its large eyes gleamed with a mix of relief and awe. The Terexian's name, as Rise understood it, was Callum. Callum had been one of the leaders who had sent out the distress signal that had reached the Deathworlder fleet. "Captain Rise," Callum began, his voice calm but filled with emotion. "You have saved our people. The Vorkari were merciless. We were certain that our world would fall. We owe you everything." Rise gave a nod, his expression softening. "It was our honor to help. You were in danger, and we couldn't ignore that. Humanity doesn't stand by when others need assistance." Callum bowed his head, his long, graceful neck bending in an expression of deep respect. "I am not sure how to express our gratitude, but please, understand that your actions will be remembered by our people for generations to come." The Terexian leader's words were humble, but Rise could see the sincerity in his eyes. The Terexians were a peaceful species, not built for war. They had been ill-prepared for the brutality of the Vorkari, and it was clear that their survival had been hanging by a thread. Yet, they were resilient. They had not given up hope, even when it seemed like all was lost. "You don't need to say anything more, Callum," Rise said, his voice calm and reassuring. "The fact that you're still here, that your world is still here, is all the thanks we need." A small smile flickered on Callum's face, though it was laced with sadness as he looked out the window behind him. "We are not sure what our future holds, Captain. Our cities have been damaged, and many of our people have lost their homes. The Vorkari's attack has left scars that may take a long time to heal." Rise nodded. He had seen destruction like this before. Planets torn apart, entire civilizations brought to their knees by powerful enemies. But he had also seen those same worlds rebuild, rise from the ashes stronger than before. The Terexians would do the same. With time, they would recover. "We'll help," Rise said firmly. "Our fleet is at your disposal. If there's anything we can do to help you rebuild, we'll be there." Callum seemed to be taken aback by the offer, his eyes wide. "You would help us further, after everything you've already done." Riz smiled softly. "We're Deathworlders. We're not afraid of challenges, and if you need help, we'll stand by you. The galaxy might not always be kind, but you don't have to face it alone." There was a long pause before Callum spoke again. I cannot thank you enough, Captain Riz. You have given us a future. I will ensure that the story of what you have done for us will be told for generations to come." The connection began to fade as Callum bowed his head once more, his image slowly flickering out of view. The bridge was quiet again, but Riz could feel a weight lifting from his shoulders. They had done more than just win a battle. They had given a people a chance to rebuild their world, to restore their future. "Captain, we've received communications from other systems," Grayson reported. "The Federation has taken notice of our victory. There are already talks of offering support for Tyrexia's recovery." Rice turned back to his officer, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Good. Let's make sure they follow through. The Tyrexians will need more than just words. They'll need real help." The crew of the Courageous worked quietly, their focus now on assisting the Tyrexians. Riz stood silently at the front of the bridge, looking out into space. The battle was over, but the work had just begun. They had saved the Tyrexians, but now it was time to help them rebuild their home, their society. In that moment, Riz realized something. The real strength of humanity wasn't just in their ability to fight. It was in their capacity to care, to lift up those who needed it most. And that, he thought, was what made them truly powerful. The Courageous remained in orbit above Tyrexia, the fleet now stationed around the planet, providing protection as the Tyrexians began their recovery. Captain Alden Riz stood at the bridge window, gazing at the world below. The battle had been fierce, but they had won. Now, the true work began. The Tyrexians needed more than just protection. They needed help rebuilding their cities, restoring their industries, and healing the wounds left by the Vorkari invasion. Riz knew that this would take time, but humanity had never been one to back down from a challenge. His fleet would remain as long as needed. As long as Tyrexia needed them, the Deathworlders would stand ready. "Captain, the Federation has sent a relief convoy," Lieutenant Grayson reported, breaking Riz's quiet contemplation. "They're bringing supplies, medical teams, and engineers to assist in the rebuilding efforts." Riz nodded. "Good. The Tyrexians will need everything they can get." Grayson hesitated for a moment before continuing. "The Federation is also requesting that we send some of our own engineering teams to help with the recovery. They want us to lead the reconstruction efforts." Rice thought for a moment. It was a big request, but it made sense. Humanity had the experience and the resources to make a real difference. And the Tyrexians had shown incredible resilience. They deserved the chance to rebuild their world without worrying about their survival. "We'll send a team," Riz said, his voice steady. "Make sure they know we'll be staying as long as necessary. This isn't just about rebuilding buildings. It's about rebuilding a society." Grayson nodded, tapping a few commands into his console. "Understood, Captain. I'll coordinate with the Federation and get our engineers ready." As the days passed, the Deathworlder fleet became a constant presence in Tyrexian space. The Tyrexians, grateful for the help they were receiving, worked tirelessly alongside the human engineers, doing everything they could to restore their world. The humans provided the knowledge and tools, while the Tyrexians used their own expertise in the planet's unique geology to begin restoring the land and natural resources. The reconstruction was a massive undertaking. Cities that had been reduced to rubble began to rise from the ashes. Buildings were rebuilt, infrastructure was restored, and power grids were brought back online. It wasn't just about fixing the damage. It was about making sure that Tyrexia would never again fall victim to such an invasion. One afternoon, Riz was standing in the command center of the Courageous, reviewing reports from the engineers. He had just finished speaking with Admiral Weaver, who was overseeing the fleet's protection efforts when Grayson approached. "Captain, there's someone here to see you," Grayson said. "A representative from the Tyrexian Council. They would like to speak with you." Rise raised an eyebrow. "Send them in." A moment later, a Tyrexian officer entered the command center. This one was dressed in formal attire, with a long cloak and intricate markings on their chest. The officer bowed deeply before addressing Reyes. "Captain Reyes," the Tyrexian said, "I am Nyros, a member of the Tyrexian Council. On behalf of our people, I wish to express our deepest gratitude for everything you and your fleet have done for us." Reyes gave a respectful nod. "It's our duty. Your people have shown great strength in the face of impossible odds. We're just doing what we can to help." Nyros' expression softened, though there was a certain sadness in their eyes. "The damage to our world is vast. It will take many years for us to fully recover. But I must say, Captain, that our bond with your people is something I will cherish forever. Your help has given us hope." Reyes could feel the weight of those words. The Tyrexians had been on the brink of losing everything, but humanity had come to their aid. And now they had a chance to rebuild. It wasn't just about the victory in battle. It was about the promise of a better future. "We're not done yet," Reyes said. "You'll have our support as long as you need it. Humanity doesn't walk away when others need help." Nyros bowed once more. "I do not doubt it. We are fortunate to have you by our side." As the meeting came to an end, Reyes felt a sense of pride. They had saved a world, yes, but more than that, they had built something far more important, a lasting relationship with the Tyrexians, the kind of bond that could never be broken by fear, war, or time. Over the next few months, the Deathworlder fleet worked alongside the Tyrexians to restore their planet. The humans continued to provide the resources and manpower necessary to speed up the process. Tyrexian engineers and scientists, inspired by their newfound allies, developed new ways to harness their planet's unique resources and begin a new chapter of prosperity. One day, as Reyes looked down at Tyrexia from the Courageous, he couldn't help but smile. The world was healing. It wasn't just the buildings and cities that were being rebuilt. It was the spirit of the Tyrexian people. They had found hope in the darkest of times, and they had done it with the help of their human allies. And as Reyes watched the sun rise over the horizon of Tyrexia, he knew that this was just the beginning. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson. When humanity made a promise, they kept it. Months passed since the victory over the Vorkuri. Tyrexia was rebuilding, and the Deathworlder fleet had continued to support the planet's recovery efforts. Captain Alden Reyes stood on the bridge of the Courageous, watching as ships from the Federation delivered supplies, and human engineers worked alongside their Tyrexian counterparts to repair the damage caused by the invasion. The Tyrexians had made great progress. Their cities were rising from the ashes, and their people were beginning to heal from the trauma of the attack. Reyes felt a sense of pride in what they had accomplished. But even as peace settled over the planet, a nagging feeling of unease lingered in the back of his mind. He knew that the galaxy was a dangerous place, and the Tyrexians weren't the only ones watching. "Captain," Lieutenant Grayson's voice broke through his thoughts. "We've picked up something on the scanners. It's an unknown ship, approaching fast. No identification signals." Reyes turned to Grayson, his brow furrowed. "Show me." The holographic display on the bridge flickered to life, showing a sleek, dark ship moving toward Tyrexia. It was unlike anything Reyes had seen before. The ship's design was sharp and angular, built for speed and stealth. It was traveling at an incredible rate, far faster than any standard warship. "Any weapons readings?" Reyes asked, his voice calm but sharp. "None so far," Grayson replied. "It seems to be scanning our fleet, Captain. It hasn't opened fire, but it's definitely approaching with purpose." Reyes frowned. "Send a warning to the Tyrexian government. Have them prepare for possible contact. We'll meet this ship head-on." The crew of the Courageous worked quickly, preparing for a potential encounter. Reyes watched the mysterious ship on the screen, wondering what its intentions were. The galaxy was full of strange, unpredictable forces, and this ship could be anything: a friend, a foe, or something in between. As the unknown ship drew closer, the Courageous began to power its weapons, just in case. The Tyrexian government had done its best to establish peace, but Rhys knew that there were always those who would try to exploit any moment of weakness. The Vorkari were only one of many threats in the galaxy. "Captain, they're hailing us," Grayson said, his voice tense. "Put them through," Rhys ordered, his eyes narrowing. "Let's see who they are." The bridge fell silent as a hologram flickered to life. The figure that appeared was tall, humanoid, and cloaked in a long, dark robe. The face was concealed, but a voice, deep and resonant, spoke from the shadows. "This is the vessel Sable Reaper, Captain Alden Rhys," the figure said. "We come in peace, for now." Rhys's eyes narrowed. The tone of the voice was calm, but there was an underlying edge to it that made him uneasy. "Who are you, and what is your purpose here?" Rhys demanded, his voice steady. "We are from the Orcs Dominion," the figure replied. "We have been watching the recent events unfold here, and we find your actions intriguing. Your fleet's victory over the Vorkari was impressive, but we wonder how long your power can last. The galaxy is full of threats that even you may not be able to defeat." Rhys felt his instincts flare. The Orcs Dominion was a name that he had heard of only in whispers, a mysterious and powerful empire that had been lurking in the shadows of the galaxy for centuries. Their intentions were unclear, but their reputation was not to be taken lightly. "We don't need your judgment," Rhys said firmly. "We're here to help, not to fight for your entertainment." The figure on the screen remained calm, unbothered by Rhys's defiance. "We are not here to fight. Not yet, at least. We are simply curious. You have done well, Captain, but the galaxy is vast. You will soon realize that there are far greater threats than the Vorkari. And when those threats come, you will be tested." The hologram flickered for a moment as the figure paused. "We will be watching you, Captain Rhys. The Orcs Dominion always watches. Should you ever need guidance, we are not far. But be warned, our assistance comes at a price." Before Rhys could respond, the hologram vanished, leaving only the empty space where the ship had once been. The Sable Reaper had disappeared as quickly as it had arrived. "Captain," Grayson spoke up, his voice cautious. "What should we do? Should we pursue them?" Rhys stood still, his mind racing. The Orcs Dominion was a new player on the stage, but one that could change everything. If they were truly as powerful as their reputation suggested, they could pose a threat to everything the humans and Tyrexians had worked so hard to build. "No," Rhys said, his voice firm. "We won't chase them. But we will be ready. They've made their move. Now we watch them just as closely as they're watching us." The mysterious encounter left a lingering sense of uncertainty on the bridge. Rhys knew that the galaxy had just changed once again. The Orcs Dominion's warning was clear. The battle for peace had only just begun. The uneasy tension aboard the Courageous had only grown since the mysterious encounter with the Orcs Dominion. Captain Alden Rhys paced the bridge, his mind heavy with the warning they had received. The Orcs Dominion had made it clear that they were watching, and that their interest in humanity was far from over. They had promised guidance, but at a price. Rhys knew that no one in the galaxy gave anything for free. "Captain," Lieutenant Grayson's voice broke through his thoughts. "We've received a transmission from the Tyrexian Council. They want to meet with you." Rhys nodded, rubbing the back of his neck. On screen. A moment later, the hologram of Nyros, the Tyrexian representative, flickered into view. His expression was serious, and the background behind him showed a city still in the process of reconstruction. "Captain Rhys," Nyros began, his voice heavy with concern. "We've heard of the encounter with the Orcs Dominion. Our people are troubled. The last thing we need is another powerful force trying to control our future." Rhys looked at Nyros, seeing the worry in his eyes. The Tyrexians had suffered enough. And now they were facing the possibility of more threats. It was clear that the fragile peace they had worked so hard to build was at risk. "I understand your concerns, Nyros," Reyes replied, his voice steady. "But we won't let them intimidate us. We've faced threats before, and we'll face them again. The most important thing now is that we stay united. If we stand together, we can protect Terexia and every world we care about." Nyros gave a slight nod, but his expression remained grave. "We have heard rumors of the Dominion's strength, Captain. If they come with hostility, we are not prepared. Our people are still recovering. We don't have the resources to defend ourselves against an empire like that." Reyes could feel the weight of Nyros's words. The Terexians were doing their best to rebuild, but they needed time. And as much as Reyes wanted to offer them a sense of security, he couldn't promise that the Orcs' dominion wouldn't come back. He had no idea what they were truly capable of. "We'll help," Reyes said, his voice firm. "The Deathworlder fleet is at your side. We'll do everything we can to help you rebuild and prepare for any threats. We've faced the Vorkuri and come out on top. If the Dominion comes, we'll fight back." Nyros seemed to take comfort in Reyes's words, though the uncertainty in his eyes didn't fade. "We will not forget your support, Captain. But we fear the day when our enemies come. What if we're not strong enough to survive?" Reyes stood tall, his gaze focused on Nyros. "Then we'll stand together. Humanity has always been a force to reckon with, and we will make sure you stand with us, not just as allies, but as equals. You're not alone in this, Nyros. I promise you." There was a long pause, and then Nyros finally spoke. "We will prepare then. And we will make sure that our people understand that we must unite to face whatever comes." "Good," Reyes said, nodding. "We'll keep you updated on any further developments. Stay strong, Nyros. We'll be watching, and we'll be ready." As the hologram faded, Reyes turned back to Grayson, who was standing silently at his side. The room was filled with the hum of the ship's systems as the crew continued their work, but Reyes couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy had just shifted again. The Orcs' dominion wasn't a simple threat. They were a dark shadow over everything they had fought for. "Captain," Grayson said, looking at Reyes, "what's our next move?" Reyes took a deep breath, considering the options. "We continue with the rebuilding efforts here. We reinforce our alliances, not just with the Terexians, but with anyone who will stand with us. And we prepare for the worst." "The worst?" Grayson asked, his voice filled with concern. "The Orcs' dominion isn't just a powerful empire. They're patient, and they know how to manipulate. We'll need to be ready for anything they throw at us." Reyes walked over to the command console, his mind spinning with possibilities. The warning from the Orcs' dominion was just the beginning. If they came with force, humanity and their allies would be ready. But Reyes couldn't shake the feeling that the real battle would not be fought with weapons. It would be fought with alliances, with trust, and with the strength to stand up against the unknown. "Send out the message," Reyes said. "Tell the Federation, the Terexians, and anyone we've helped that we need to strengthen our ties. We need every ally we can get." Grayson nodded and moved to relay the orders. Reyes looked out the window, his gaze lost in the vastness of space. The battle for peace wasn't over. It was only just beginning. And this time, the stakes were higher than ever. But Reyes was ready. Humanity had faced the impossible before. They would do it again. For Terexia, for the galaxy, and for a future that, no matter how dark it seemed, they would fight to protect.